I knew in high school that I wanted to be a doctor. I took my first biology course when I was a sophomore in high school, and it was like love at first sight. I absolutely fell in love with studying biology, and I had a pretty limited idea of what people could do with biology, and the only thing I could come up with was being a doctor. And as soon as I thought of it, I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and I never lost that passion and drive to make it happen. So I went through pre-med in college and got accepted to Georgetown Medical School, and the rest was history. Georgetown also was a very expensive school, so I took advantage of a U.S. Navy scholarship, which paid my way through med school in return for working for the Navy for a few years. And that really shaped a lot of my ideas about healthcare delivery, my experience in the military, because it was a system that made sense. Clinical decisions were made by health experts. Healthcare was delivered in teams of doctors, nurses, physical therapists, nutritionists, psychologists. No money ever changed hands. You just showed your ID and you were in. After I'd been in the Navy for 8 years, I had my first child, so we were ready to settle down. Find a home somewhere and live there and raise our children, and so that meant getting out of the Navy. Worked first in an HMO and then in a community health center where the culture was very, very different. Most of the patients I was seeing were for either health maintenance or well child checks or for very minor illness, and even back then, the culture was very much that if anything more complicated arose, the standard of care was sort of to send you off to a specialist or order lots of tests. And parental expectations were very, very different. As I came face to face with health benefits that were part of employment, patients had sort of morphed into healthcare consumers who very understandably, wanted their money's worth. And unfortunately, in the American psyche, that often means that more is better. So the more health care you get, the more intervention you get, the better. So there really was this shift, this culture shock from coming from the military, where it seemed like clinical decisions were based on medical science, to the civilian system where people in general were very aware of how much health premiums and health benefits were costing them, even if not directly, just you can't change a job because you'll lose your health benefits. And so parental expectations became very much tied to getting your money's worth and expecting intervention. I spent so much of my day discussing naps or whether to start strained carrots before strained peas, and not that these aren't important questions, but they're really not what a doctor is trained to do. I spent so much time trying to convince parents, often unsuccessfully, that really your child does not need all these cold medicines, they do not need these antibiotics. Not only not convincing the parents, but feeling very disrespected in the process. It never really occurred to me, well, maybe I should just do something else. And it wasn't until I happened to have a conversation with a teacher at my daughter's school. My daughter went to an independent school, which cost tuition. And the teacher mentioned to me that many of the faculty in the science department had previous careers, veterinarians, different sorts of careers, and that teaching science was a second career for them. I couldn't get the idea out of my head, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should do this just for a couple of years. I was so tired. I felt so little joy in what I was doing anymore, and I saw no real hope for change. I mean, we had the healthcare system we had, just changing practices or something wasn't gonna help that. I'll always appreciate the chance that I had to practice medicine, but if I had kept on, that means I never would have taught chemistry, and I love doing that. And I never would have had this whole world of writing open to me. I've loved writing the book. I've loved writing about healthcare issues in general. So, do I regret that I can't do everything? Yes, but I feel very fortunate that I've had the chance to do this variety of things that have all been very meaningful to me, that I've been able to feel passionate about.